You got to stay on. They have quality depth at every position. They've got size. They've got elite skill set. And so for us, we got to be on, and we got to be attentive, and we got to be aware the entire possession defensively. It's going to take a lot out of us. This is not, we can't just go out and try to outscore Dallas. They can score too. So we've got to be really intentional defensively in our coverages and executing our coverages. But we got to take it one possession at a time. All right, Green, bring us home.
Trust is one of the hardest things to build in professional sports and one of the easiest things to destroy. If fans thought the Indiana Fever losing their home opener to a 10-win Dallas Wings team was already the worst part of the weekend, the post-game press conference somehow made the situation even more explosive. Head coach Stephanie White delivered a quote on live television that immediately spread across social media and triggered massive backlash from fans, analysts, and basketball communities online. Many people are calling it one of the most confusing and concerning coaching comments the WNBA has seen in years, especially because the statement appeared to contradict both the eye test and the actual statistics from a game. What made the moment even more uncomfortable was that shortly afterward, Caitlin Clark sat in the exact same press conference chair and seemed to give answers that directly conflicted with White's explanation of what happened on the court. The reaction online was immediate and intense. Fever fans flooded social media with frustration, accusing the organization of making excuses instead of taking accountability for the loss. Many supporters felt the coaching staff ignored the obvious issues that cost Indiana the game, including the lack of bench reduction, defensive breakdowns, and questionable rotations late in overtime. Instead of calming concerns, the press conference only intensified fears that the coaching staff may already be losing the confidence of the fan base after just one game. At the center of the backlash is a growing belief among fans that the organization is not being fully transparent, particularly regarding Caitlin Clark's health. After Clark was seen receiving treatment during the game and briefly returning to the locker room, every comment from the coaching staff became heavily scrutinized. Now many supporters are questioning whether the Fever are downplaying injuries or trying to control the narrative surrounding the team's early struggles. The combination of a heartbreaking loss, alarming injury concerns, and a controversial post-game explanation has created a wave of distrust that is spreading rapidly across the fan base. And the pressure on Stephanie White and the Fever organization is escalating faster than anyone expected this early in the season.
Started off a little slow, I think, just the anxiety of the first game, trying to work through that. But overall, I felt good, felt fast out there. Felt like I was literally a couple buckets away from putting together a really, really good game and helping us win. But our offense is obviously not the issue. We're perfectly fine on offense, and there's still so many things we can do better on that end of the floor. But, you got to get...
The Indiana Fever just lost an overtime thriller to the Dallas Wings after allowing 107 points on their home floor, despite getting an incredible offensive performance from their stars. Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston combined for 73 points and carried Indiana offensively for most of the night. But the biggest controversy came after the game when Stephanie White addressed the media and made a statement that immediately sparked backlash across social media. When asked about facing Dallas, White said, "We cannot just go out and try to outscore Dallas. They can score too, so we've got to be really intentional defensively." That quote instantly frustrated Fever fans because many viewed it as completely disconnected from the identity of the roster she is coaching. Indiana's entire franchise is built around offensive firepower. Caitlin Clark is widely viewed as one of the greatest offensive playmakers women's basketball has ever seen. Kelsey Mitchell just dropped 30 points, and Aaliyah Boston dominated inside all night. To many fans, hearing the head coach suggest that Indiana cannot simply win through offense sounded like a complete misunderstanding of the strengths of the team. Supporters argued that if your stars combine for 73 points at home and you still lose, the problem clearly is not the offense. The comparison many fans made online was that it sounded like telling Patrick Mahomes not to rely on throwing the football. In their eyes, Indiana's greatest weapon is its ability to score, and try to downplay that identity felt like a coaching surrender rather than a solution. What made the situation even more awkward was that Caitlin Clark appeared to directly contradict her coach just minutes later during her own media session. Clark told reporters, "Our offense is obviously not the issue. We are perfectly fine on offense." That comment immediately went viral because it directly challenged the tone of White's explanation. While White emphasized defensive concerns, Clark made it clear she believed the offense had already done enough to win the game. The contrast between the two answers created the impression that the team's superstar and head coach may already see the problems very differently. To be fair, Stephanie White's general defensive philosophy is not entirely unreasonable. Dallas has explosive offensive talent. Paige Buchers and Eric Ogunbo are elite scorers, and any successful game plan against the Wings has to involve disciplined defense. On paper, White is correct that Indiana cannot rely only on offense against teams with that level of scoring ability. But philosophies and game plans only matter if they work in reality. And the reality is Indiana gave up 107 points at home. The Fever struggled to contain dribble penetration. Rotations broke down repeatedly, and Dallas guards attacked the defense with far too much ease throughout the game. Fans were frustrated not simply because of the loss itself, but because they felt White focused more on explaining her philosophy than taking accountability for a defensive performance that clearly failed when it mattered most.
Again, on the floor, learning how teams are going to play differently against us with all of those three and the rest of our core back together on the floor. And so we got to be patient with that process. I know we want it instantaneously, and that's kind of the world we live in. Everybody wants everything right now. But I think we give each other grace and give ourselves grace through this process. But these guys are competitive.
Embarrassing.
And
Stephanie White's post-game comments continued to frustrate Fever fans when she addressed questions about the chemistry and timing of the roster by saying, "We know that there's going to be a growth process. We got to be patient with that process. I know we want it instantaneously, and that is kind of the world we live in, but I think we give each other grace." That single word, grace, immediately became a lightning rod online because many fans felt it completely missed the reality of the expectations surrounding this team. Supporters are not looking at Indiana as a rebuilding project or an expansion franchise trying to find its identity. They see a roster built around Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston, arguably one of the most talented offensive cores in the entire WNBA. And they expect a team capable of competing right now. The frustration is intensified by the investment fans are making to support the Fever. Opening night ticket prices were extremely high, with many supporters traveling long distances, booking hotels, and spending significant money to watch what they believe will be a legitimate contender. Because of that, asking fans for patience and grace after surrendering 107 points at home to a team that won only 10 games last season felt tone-deaf to many people following the franchise. To critics, the comments sounded less like accountability and more like preparation for excuses, as though the organization was already lowering expectations after just one game. The backlash online was immediate. Social media comment sections exploded with criticism from fans accusing the coaching staff of avoiding responsibility for the loss. Many posts questioned White's leadership and decision-making, while others argued that the Fever organization underestimated how knowledgeable and emotionally invested the fan base has become since Caitlin Clark arrived. Instead of calming concerns, the messaging from the press conference appeared to deepen frustrations because supporters wanted direct accountability for the defensive breakdowns, poor bench production, and questionable rotations that cost Indiana the game. What especially bothered many fans was a growing sense that the organization was trying to frame the loss as part of a normal growth process, rather than confronting the obvious issues on the floor. The Fever entered the season with massive expectations, national attention, and one of the most marketable stars in sports. Fans believe those expectations also demand a higher level of accountability from the coaching staff. And as the press conference continued, critics felt Stephanie White moved even further away from taking responsibility, instead shifting attention toward player execution and chemistry rather than fully addressing the coaching decisions that played a major role in the collapse.
A player-led team going into the season, especially with championship aspirations.
It's really important. I mean, they're our big three, and continuing to challenge them to take ownership of that. And that's not just on the floor. It's off the floor. It's in the locker room. It's when things aren't going your way. It's when things are going your way. It's holding each other accountable and the team accountable. It's lifting each other up and the team up.
A reporter also asked Stephanie White about her expectations for Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston as leaders of the team, and her response only added to the growing frustration among fans. White explained that she is continuing to challenge them to take ownership, not just on the floor, but off the floor as well, including leadership in the locker room, and how they respond when things are not going their way. She even added that Kelsey Mitchell is just now coming into her own in that leadership role. For many critics, that statement landed poorly, especially in the aftermath of a home opener loss, because it shifted attention away from coaching responsibility and toward player accountability. The backlash from fans comes from a simple expectation in professional sports. The head coach is supposed to take ownership when things go wrong. After a loss like this, especially one at home where Indiana surrendered 107 points, many believe the appropriate response is direct accountability, acknowledging poor defensive preparation, rotation issues, and in-game adjustments that failed. Instead, White's comments were interpreted by some as deflecting responsibility toward players, referees, and a growth process, rather than fully addressing the coaching shortcomings that contributed to the defeat. Critics argue that this pattern of messaging is becoming a concern for the Fever's internal culture. They point to repeated references to development, patience, and leadership challenges as a way of shifting focus away from immediate performance issues. In their view, when a team built around Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston loses a winnable game at home, the conversation should start with coaching accountability, not player development narratives. As the frustration continues to grow, attention is now turning back to Caitlin Clark's post-game comments, which many believe reveal a very different psychological reality inside the locker room.
Shot the ball incredibly well. Really, the only quarter we put together was the third. I guess in the fourth we were fouling, so. But figured it out a little bit there in the third. We just got to be able to do that a little more consistently. But it was a great test. It was a great game. Our locker room was positive afterwards. So we're not going to hang our heads. We're going to move forward. A lot to be proud of, and a lot to learn from too. So it's only one of 44. We got a long ways to go.
At the end of her post-game comments, Caitlin Clark said something that immediately caught attention across the basketball world. She explained that the locker room was still positive after the loss, and that the team was focused on moving forward, adding, "A lot to be proud of." For many fans, that message landed in a very different way, given the context of the game. The Indiana Fever had just lost their home opener in overtime, giving up 107 points in a game where their big three, Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston, combined for 73 points. Their bench produced just 5 points across 56 minutes of action, and they fell to a Dallas Wings team that won only 10 games the previous season. From a pure competitive standpoint, critics expected frustration, urgency, and visible disappointment after a defensive collapse that cost them a winnable game at home. Instead, Clark's description of a positive locker room sparked debate about mentality and expectations. Some fans interpreted it as maturity and composure, a team refusing to panic after one game in a long season. Others saw it as something more concerning, arguing that elite teams are supposed to have a sharper edge, where a loss like that creates anger, urgency, and a demand for immediate correction rather than comfort in positivity. In contrast, critics pointed to how championship environments in other leagues often respond to similar losses with intensity and accountability, especially when expectations are high. The concern raised online is whether Indiana's internal culture is aligning with those expectations or normalizing performances that should feel unacceptable given the talent on the roster. Ultimately, Clark's comment added another layer to an already heated post-game narrative, one where questions about coaching, defense, depth, and mentality are all colliding after just one game of the season.
A question about the injury report when he downgraded to out. Can you give us an update there?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we want her to be 100% when she's out there. We don't want her to be hesitant. We want to be, this is just overly cautious to make sure that we're not putting her in any position to regress.
Mm-hmm.
So, is you saying this?
You made a couple of quick trips to the locker room. Was there a reason for that?
Sorry, just a second. Oh, my bad. Just getting my back adjusted. It's out of line pretty quickly. So, just getting my back put back in place a little bit. But other than that, feel great. But
at the end of her post-game comments, Caitlin Clark said something that immediately caught attention across the basketball world. She explained that the locker room was still positive after the loss, and that the team was focused on moving forward, adding, "A lot to be proud of." For many fans, that message landed in a very different way given the context of the game. The Indiana Fever had just lost their home opener in overtime, giving up 107 points in a game where their big three, Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston, combined for 73 points. Their bench produced just 5 points across 56 minutes of action, and they fell to a Dallas Wings team that won only 10 games the previous season. From a pure competitive standpoint, critics expected frustration, urgency, and visible disappointment after a defensive collapse that cost them a winnable game at home. Instead, Clark's description of a positive locker room sparked debate about mentality and expectations. Some fans interpret it as maturity and composure, a team refusing to panic after one game in a long season. Others saw it as something more concerning, arguing that elite teams are supposed to have a sharper edge, where a loss like that creates anger, urgency, and a demand for immediate correction rather than comfort in positivity. In contrast, critics pointed to how championship environments in other leagues often respond to similar losses with intensity and accountability, especially when expectations are high. The concern raised online is whether Indiana's internal culture is aligning with those expectations or normalizing performances that should feel unacceptable given the talent on the roster. Ultimately, Clark's comment added another layer to an already heated post-game narrative, one where questions about coaching, defense, depth, and mentality are all colliding after just one game of the season.